กาลครั้งหนึ่งนานมาแล้วณภูเขาสูงแห่งหนึ่งซึ่งเชื่อกันว่า
A long time ago, high on a tall mountain, halfway between heaven and the earth, there lived a king who had 7 beautiful daughters. They were Kinaree, beings with special powers, half human, half bird. They could remove their wings and tails to take human form. The king's youngest daughter was named Manohra, and it was said that she was the most beautiful of all. When the moon was full, Manohra and her sisters would put on their wings and tails and fly from their home high on Betrayal mountain to an enchanting lake in the Himapan forest far below. When they reached the shore, they took off their wings and tails to bathe in the moonlight and the fresh sparkling water. There was another king who lived on the other side of the Himapan forest. This king had one son, a handsome and powerful warrior named Prasuton. One of the prince's hunters who had lost his way was traveling through the Himapan forest on a full moon night when he saw the Kinaree princesses frolicking the lake. He was struck by their beauty and determined to bring one home to be his prince's bride. On the night of the next full moon, Manohra and her sisters flew down from Betrayal mountain. The hunter was there by the lake shore hiding in the bushes. As soon as their backs were turned, he crept down the bank and took one set of wings and tails from the lake shore. When the Kinaree sisters came back, the hunter leaped from the bushes, frightening them. They rushed to put on their wings and tails, but Manohra's were not there, so she could not fly and was captured. She was sad and frightened, but when she was present to Prasuton, it was love at first sight. They were soon married. The queen put Manohra's wings and tail in the royal treasury for safekeeping. Manohra and Prasuton lived happily for a little while, but not for long. There was a scheming court advisor who had hoped to marry his daughter to the prince. He told the king that an enemy was planning to attack, so Prasuton would have to go to the border to fight. One night while the warrior prince was away, the king had a nightmare. The court advisor convinced him that this dream meant that Manohra must sacrifice by fire or else the queen was going to die. Manohra asked only that she be allowed to die complete with her wings and tail. She would perform the beautiful and exotic Kinaree dance for the court. At the end of this dance, she would fly into the fire to make the sacrifice and save the queen. So it was agreed. Manohra began dancing. She tried her wings to see if she could fly. As soon as her feet came off the floor, the guards lifted their bows to take aim. Manohra kept dancing, but with each step she flew a little higher until she had flown so high that their arrows could no longer reach her, and she was free. Before she flew away, Manohra asked the queen to warn Prasuton not to follow after her. Without wings to fly, the journey for him would be long and perilous. Manohra loved her husband and did not want to leave him, but she feared for her own life. As she flew over the Himapan forest, she stopped to visit a wise old hermit who lived along the way. She knew Prasuton might not heed her warning, and so she left gifts for him. A golden ring he had given her, and an enchanted cloth to protect him from the dangers along the way. When he returned home and found her gone, Prasuton chose to follow Manohra in spite of the danger. He met the hermit and received the gifts Manohra had left for him. On the bank of a big river, he climbed the tallest tree he could find to look for a crossing. At the top was an eagle's nest, as big as a house. The gigantic birds were talking. They were going to fly to Betrayal mountain for a festival to celebrate Manohra's return. Prasuton cleverly hid between their feathers, holding on for dear life as they flew. When they arrived at the palace, he dropped down into the garden outside the palace to wait for his chance. When Manohra had returned home, the king had ordered her to stay outside the palace walls for 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days, to wash off the smell of the human kingdom. Each day she was bathed in water from a pond in the garden. Prasuton's long journey to Betrayal mountain ended in that same garden, on the last day of Manohra's exile. He watched Manohra's attendants at the pond, trying to think of a way to get a message to his wife. He offered to lift the heavy pot to put on the last attendant's shoulder and was able to slip Manohra's golden ring into it. Manohra found the ring when the water was poured over her and knew at once that her husband had come. Later that day, she was joyfully welcomed back into the palace for the first time since her return. When she told the story of what had happened, her father asked, "If he truly loved you, why didn't he come for you?" Manohra answered, "He is here." When they met Prasuton, so handsome and powerful, they were ready to forgive anything, almost. The king told Prasuton that he could keep Manohra as his wife if he could prove that he really knew her. The prince agreed, but when Manohra and her sisters were brought in, they had all been made up to look exactly alike. Prasuton could not tell one from the other. Then he remembered the ring, and he knew in his heart that Manohra would be wearing it. Sure enough, he chose his wife from all the Kinaree sisters, and they were reunited at last. Prasuton and Manohra returned to his kingdom where his father, the king, felt so badly about everything that had happened that he gave up his throne so that Prasuton could be king and Manohra, the Kinaree, his wife and queen, and they lived happily ever after.